Alright, so in the last video, we made every single sound in a beat, and I mentioned that I want to make a video showing you guys how I make all of my drum samples and give you guys a feel for how the sample pack is going to come out once I release it. So today we're going to do just that, and we're going to go through my process of making my drum samples. Now, in order to get the best mix possible, I actually use my speakers instead of my headphones, so the audio in today's video is going to be a little bit more different in videos in the past. Alright, two final things to mention. First one is that I really do recommend watching this video on some speakers or headphones if you have them, just because sounds through a phone speaker don't really translate that well. And finally, I kind of messed up on something. I didn't actually record my microphone for the very first kick section. Everything else has my microphone on it, but the kick processing part of this video is actually using this camera's internal microphone. So yeah, there's that, but everything is perfect after that. So the audio will be pretty bad at first, but I guarantee you it gets better in like 3 minutes, so just wait on it. And as always, if you guys like the video, drop a like down below, it really helps me out a lot, and subscribe for more videos in the future. Now let's get into today's video. Alright, so first we're gonna go over to Serum, because that's where we're gonna be making all of our samples today. Alright, so in last video I showed you guys I had a lot of presets with some stuff in here, and we're gonna be starting off with a kick today, so we're gonna select that one right here. And for a kick, all it is on the oscillator A, you're gonna put right here, analog, and then sine wave. You're going to link the LFO once you shape it like how you want it, grab this and put it onto the course. And that's how you're gonna get that whole like sound. So I do a lot more work in Serum than most people. People like to just get a really raw audio file and then use their effects in their mixing stage, but I'd like to get a pretty solid sample right off the bat. One thing I can do is go grab another piece of noise, and now I am gonna be hitting the noise filter over there. And then just finding what I like. I just wanted to basically build the transient more than actually have their beats like a new sound. I think I like that one the most. So basically all that I really did is increase the drive and the cutoff, and that's pretty much it. Added some white noise, and everything else is pretty standard. So now we can just go over here, hit record into Edison. And now we're just gonna go pick one that we like. Now we're just gonna go drag it over to the playlist mode, which honestly, the playlist mode is where I make all of my samples. I never use like the channel rack or anything like that. Okay, so before we get started, I always start with a soft clipper right there. Just make sure that, because sometimes in sound design you can really have things go crazy, and first thing is gonna be an EQ. That sounds good. Next thing is going to be some fast distortion. I like to use a very simple distortion at first, and then a little bit more complex distortion after that. And now you can see we're probably getting like this, we're probably hitting just as hard, but now we're going to be at a lower dB because before it's hitting above 0 and now it's below 0. So that's how you know you're in the right direction when you're going with your kick. Alright, next thing I want to do is grab Orbit, which is the only processor that I use for my transients. Does it before. Still good. But now that's hitting a lot harder too. And this kick sounds a little bit more knocking, which whenever that happens I like to use a wave shaper. So wave shaper is kind of weird how this one does obviously sound more distorted up here, right? But then down here, it sounds better. First thing we're gonna do is go over to Maximus and raise up the master all the way, because I don't want to be compressing it at all. Go over to the high end, and I'm actually gonna be boosting all of it. So depending on the kick that you're making, you don't really want this much high end in it, right? So what I can actually do is, basically by boosting that, I give myself a lot more frequencies to distort just by using the high-end parameter. So now we can choke it out a little bit more, and we're still getting some more distortion. And then we get a little bit more presence with the distortion without really adding too much more high-end in there. So now we can go back over to the EQ, just to taper off that high-end just a little bit more. I'm going to go into RC20, so I'm just going to boost the distortion, and then actually pick frequencies that I want to distort. So I'm actually going to distort a little bit more of the high-end. And I don't really think I need to do too much else to that. That's good. And then okay, so here's one thing that I like to do, because with an audio file, is go over here and then automate that. The kick is sounding a little bit too long to me, so I'm just gonna taper it off with the volume parameter right there. And that sounds good to me, but it does sound like I need to actually get rid of a little bit more high end. All right, and I think that's gonna be all good to go, so we can just go ahead and export this, because I think I am gonna be including this kick in there because it sounds so good. And now I'm just gonna change that to 14, and it's already in D sharp because number 13 was in D sharp. I have a lot of kicks, okay? I like working on kicks. Number 10, guys, number 10 so far that I've created. Amazing, love that kick. But 14's a good competitor. Okay, so just realized that this microphone was not on, and this one. I don't want this one on, but I completely forgot to turn this one on. But we're back. Let's go and get back into it. Okay, so the next thing that I wanna do is go over and make a nice snare. So we're gonna click on that right there. All right, so here's the preset that I have. Okay, so all I'm doing right now is changing the course a little bit, just how it kind of gives the shape of the snare, and then raising the volume. You gotta be careful though, because if I increase the volume over here, you can really start to hear that sine wave, which I really don't want, so I'm gonna put that back down like right here. I do like the J60, but I'm gonna try a different one for right now, maybe like white. Yeah, that's good. And over here, I just add some distortion. A lot of distortion right here, and a little bit of an EQ to get rid of some of that low end while still having a little bit of a peak right there with the Q. A lot more distortion again over here, but cut out some of the high end this time. And the filter. Alright, so actually I'm going to be applying this filter over to the sine wave too, but I really lowered the volume of the sine wave. So you can still barely hear it. And I didn't even realize this. I actually added a whole other sine wave, just at a lower, like 1 octave lower, and changed the phase too. I don't know why I did that, but it works out pretty well. I mean, it sounds really good. So let's go ahead and export that. Now I'm just gonna place that in playlist mode. All right, so first things first, we're gonna add an EQ. So some people like to cut out a lot of low end from theirs, but I don't. So I'm gonna leave it like around like right here at 133 hertz. Taper off a little bit of the high end, then boost right here. That sounds good. Alright, now it's very important to be careful when adding distortion, because if I just add fast distortion to this, it sounds terrible. I know that, yeah, it's going to hit a lot harder, but I just don't like the way that sounds. Even if I decrease it, it sounds like there's like different sounds going on. Like the harmonics that it brings in, I just don't like. So I'm actually going to replace that with RC20 to store it and then pick certain frequencies again. That's good. And then maybe even a wave shaper. So this is where like wave shaper is really cool and why I really like it. It's a very unique type of distortion to where if I boost it over here, right, it does sound good, but it sounds like it's adding a lot to the body, where here it sounds like it's just basically focusing on the transient. Like the further that I go down, the quicker the sound is. And now I'm actually gonna go over to RC20 again, and I'm gonna add some noise to it, and then hit follow up to 100%, and then I'm gonna unfollow just slightly. And then just transient processor, not too much though. I think like 9%, does not need that much at all. And then just one last EQ, and then that's pretty much gonna be it. And then just a little bit of the high end. Cool, like that. Now I wanna try and find a different like pitch for it, if I can. I think I like that up plus 2 semitones. I don't know, I'm gonna go delete Edison first. Do not forget to delete Edison, it will show up in your final product. It's a very snappy snare and I really like that. They're like my favorite kind of snares. As far as like trap music goes, for like boom bap, I like my like really dragged out. But we're gonna go and export that one right now. Alright, so the one thing that I wanna say is that snares and claps for me personally are probably the most challenging. Because I feel like there's a lot of unique snares out there. It's very easy to get a really nice good kick as long as you build your ear correctly. Same thing with an 808 too, but snares and claps can be so unique, man. So those are pretty tough, but claps especially are very challenging. So here's my preset. I already don't like it. So the one thing for these, I did include the route to the certain keys that I'm playing. So this is going to be in C, and I don't like that, it's too low. So I'm actually gonna go an octave up, and that one sounds pretty okay. All right, and then in the LFO over here, usually you can do 4 little ones. So here it's gonna be 1 sound, 2 sound, 3 sound, and you can manipulate how it sounds just by dipping these up or down. I like the first sound to be pretty beefy. It's like right there. Let's go and try it. Let's go and try adding a 4th one. And that's why I like mine to be pretty close together too. So really the main thing that I like to do for my claps here is just an EQ. All right, now I'm gonna go and decrease this. All right, that should be fine like that. Add a little bit of wave shaper, I think. Guys, I'm telling you, claps are so difficult to make for me. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna go into RC20. I'm gonna use a little bit of white noise to glue it. So one reason why I love using audio files is that I'm actually going to be going on to stretch and just seeing how that does, what that does to my audio. And I like that a lot better already. Maybe we can distort it a little bit too. And I'm actually going to be putting on a limiter just to glue those sounds together just a little bit more. Very short attack time. Might add orbit just ever so slightly. One last EQ just to tighten things up a little bit, and then we should be done with this one. That added quite a bit more low end again, so we gotta get rid of that. Alright, and that should be all that we really need to do. You can see how many claps I have because I just hate making claps. But I'm still gonna include them. I'm gonna make a few more after this too. So next one's going to be a hi-hat, which is actually the most simple thing to make in the entire freaking world. I'm gonna go to my preset over here, just called hi-hat. And it's got a very quick LFO put onto a sine wave for the volume and the leveling for the noise, which I currently have hat slice 3. But I actually want to do a little bit more to it. It's very heavily put on the left ear than the right, but that you can fix that in mixing, no problem. So that's all that I'm really gonna do. And then EQ to get rid of a little bit of the high end, and another high pass filter right here too, nothing too crazy. Increase the drive a little bit. Should have a little bit of distortion on your hi-hats, as weird as it sounds. So let's go ahead and record that in, and I'll do like an EQ or two, and then I'll basically be it. Maybe a little bit more distortion. So this hi-hat does have a little bit of attack to it. As you can see, there's no real transient up until like the middle of it right here, and I don't want that. So I'm gonna put like right here, and then see if there's any more frequencies that I like in here. That's better, a lot more attack to it. So I'm gonna go and put that over here. All right, so EQ. Not a whole lot that we have to do to the EQ here because there's not a whole lot of low end in the first place. I'm gonna distort it a little bit with just fast distortion. Very simple distortion. Now it's gonna sound really bad because any hi-hat that has a little bit too much velocity to it, or just volume in general, it's gonna sound a little bit more punchy. So we can go over to the transient processor to fix that a little bit. That sounds good to me. And that's honestly everything for a hi-hat. I'm not gonna do anything else to it. That's pretty much it. All right, so let's get into this 808 right here. I like my 808s to be really dragged out. I really don't like quick 808s that much. So you're gonna go to a super low octave here, and it's just a sine wave right here. And I like my 808s really dragged out. I really don't like short 808s that much, so I have a really dragged out LFO onto the sine wave level. And I do have an oscillator B on here just for a little bit more harmonics. All right, now over in the effects and the EQ, we're gonna go ahead and decrease that. That's good for me. A lot of bass, already some good distortion, so that's all that I'm really gonna need to do. We're probably running out of battery now. No, we're doing good on battery too. Man, I can keep going forever. I love doing this sort of stuff. Definitely want to add a soft clipper here, just because, especially like 808s and kicks for me personally, they can get really out of control really quickly if you're doing a lot of processing to them. Let's go and do an EQ first. Now I'm gonna add a simple fast distortion, decrease the threshold, and the pre. I'm gonna add, it's gonna be kind of weird, I'm gonna add orbit, just because, so I want like that sort of like kick feeling at first. There we go. And because we have the soft clipper on there, the kick's not gonna take up too much of the space. RC20. Is there anything else we can really... Let's try adding wave shaper, see what it really does. I don't think I've added a wave shaper to an 808 before. Let's see. See, that's what I'm telling you. If you go down, it only really goes to the transient. That sounds pretty good. And now I'm gonna go add an EQ, get rid of some of those higher harmonics. Dig that. I think that's really all that I needed to do to it. The one thing that I've learned about sound design is less is sometimes more. Let's go over to some of my earlier packs, like this one's my recreation one. This is the very first one I ever put out. Let's go over to kicks. This one's a perfect example, right? This is too much distortion, and it just sounds muddy, even though I've EQ'd it like a million times. You know, it just sounds like there's like two kicks in there, and you don't really want that. And snares are bad. Like, that's not a snare, dog. I just realized this one's called Klep. And just a little bit of a teaser, I'll go ahead and show you guys a little bit of the 808s that are coming in this pack. Wong is probably my favorite 808 that I've ever made. So good. So all the names you guys see in this pack that I'm going to be releasing are not technically going to be the names when they get released. They're just kind of project file names. Just if I thought of a funny name, I'll put it in there, but they might just be very general. So we'll see when we actually put it out. But yeah, this one's got a lot of distortion to it, but it's not too ignorant with like the high end. All right, now I'm going to detect pitch regions, and it's already in C, so I don't have to do any work for that. As soon as you guys put it inside your DAW, it's going to be in the right key. And I think that's all that I really have today. All right, so there is my process for how I make drum samples. So like I've been mentioning, I am working on a full premium pack for you guys, and it will be out very soon. I'm not quite sure on the exact date yet, but just keep an eye out for it. And if you guys did learn anything today about drum processing, go and leave a like down below. It really helps me out. And also, since you're already down there, just go ahead and subscribe. You know, just why not? All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.